Hey guys, good afternoon. Just a quick audio check. This is your host Deepak here. Can you all hear me? I'd appreciate your feedback on the audio, guys. Fantastic. And do you see the screen as well without any disturbance? Okay, cool. Yeah, Chandrasekhar says yes. How about other people? Let's hear it from others as well. Great. Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks, Sunil. Awesome. Right. So I have kind of a number here. So I'll assume everybody else is fine as well. We'll quickly start in less than a minute. Just give me a second and we'll start discussing about this exciting topic, cloud. Back in a minute, guys. All right. So just a final check. Do you guys also see the question window on the screen, or do you just see the presentation? Is the presentation in full screen format for all of you? Okay, yeah, that's what I did not want. So what we'll do is, since I have a single host here, I'll minimize the question window and we'll take in questions after the first 15 or 20 odd minutes, right? Let me just quickly walk you through the agenda of this session. Well, I have the list of questions here. Some of you asked even before the session started. Once you registered, so I can answer those questions right away. But what I think will help all of us is to look at the cloud computing industry overview in general from a learner perspective, and then discuss what Great Learning is doing and Great Lakes is doing specifically in cloud in terms of the program that we have, and what are the career opportunities most importantly for all of you, right? I hope that works with you, and we can take in questions after the first initial 20 minutes, right? We have about 1 hour, and that should be good. Are you all good with that? Do we take questions after the first 15, 20 odd minutes? Well, it's a difficult time in the afternoon, that too after lunch, so I'm sure it's a difficult job to hold your attention, but let me try my best, right? Okay, let's start. So welcome again, everyone. Thanks for joining in today, and all of you come from a different background and different work experience. What makes that sessions interesting is the ideas that you float, and in fact, one of the USPs of our program is the work experience and the distribution that people have. It's a very heterogeneous class, and we'll talk about that more in a bit of time. But let's get started and understand what cloud computing is all about, right? So what are we doing today as an IT company or as an IT industry in general, right? So, some of you asked, hey, what is the future of cloud computing, right? What does cloud even mean? How should we look at it, right? So all these are fascinating questions and very simple questions at the same time. Now, at the same time as they are simple, they are very impactful as well. When you ask what is cloud, the definitions that you see on the websites or read in an article or a book might sound simple or maybe too technical for some people, right? But if you had to understand what cloud computing is, my suggestion would be think of it as a utility, right? If you imagine electricity for yourself, there are a few things which come to your mind, right? I'm sure no matter how rich, right, you might be or how much money you have, you don't actually have a power station at your house, right? I don't think even the Birlas or Ambanis or the Murdochs or the Gates of this world would have a full-fledged power generating station, right? But all of us need electricity. That's a fact. But how do we get it? We get it as a utility, right? Do we have to work around technically to produce electricity? The answer is no, right? You just switch on your fan or refrigerators or television, and there you go. You have energy, you have electricity, right? Similarly, think of cloud, right? Now, if all you need is a virtual machine, or if all you need is a hard drive, you really shouldn't care where is it hosted, right? Is it in Iceland? Is it in Mumbai data center? Is it in Australia? It really doesn't matter to you as a user, right? So if you push your files on Facebook or let's say on Dropbox, you really don't know, even if you wanted to, you actually don't know where exactly those files are going, right? What's that physical location where the file is being stored, right? So these are some of the fascinating aspects of cloud. But in general, cloud is a computing model, right? So cloud is, is meant to deliver you computing capabilities over internet, right? That's what it is at the end of the day, right? You can talk about cloud in 1,000 different ways, but to put it very simply, if you have to do computing, if you have to do information technology, over the internet, without the hassle of installing anything locally, without the hassle of maintaining, patches and updates and security upgrades and all of that, without the hassle of buying hard drives or machine, right? That's cloud computing for you. So computing delivered through internet, irrespective of where you are, irrespective of what kind of resources you might need, right? And giving you that kind of flexibility and scalability, right? All these adjectives come into picture because it's on demand, right? Cloud as an infrastructure will give you these capabilities when you need it, right? So in a layman term, if you do computing over internet, irrespective of where you are and what you need, at a very high level, that's cloud computing for you, right? Of course, there are technical definitions, but that's not the idea of this session, right? Now, what are companies doing today? They are focusing on business. Okay, if you were a company selling pizzas, for example, let's say McDonald's or Domino's, right? You really want to make just pizzas and good pizzas and make money out of it, right? But if you were McDonald's, you have thousands of stores across the world, right? How do you manage the entire information? How do you manage your website, your app, right? So all of that is, again, information technology, and you need computing infrastructure for that, right? But all of us might agree with this. McDonald's or Domino's or any other company for that matter, which is not an IT company, doesn't really want to take the IT overhead, doesn't want to spend too much money on information technology, right? Because it is only an enabling service for them. It is not their core business. Yeah. So companies have evolved, right? They're thinking differently, and they're spending less and less time on wrestling servers. Okay. If McDonald's spends half of their day wrestling servers, and if they have a huge IT team, you wouldn't pay an extra dollar for their burger, right? It doesn't make sense. All you need is a good burger. What McDonald's does with their IT infrastructure is none of our business as a customer, and that is why companies have started to focus more on their core business rather than IT. And like I said, you do not get any points for using servers, right? You only get points for serving your users. Yeah, that's what it is. So cloud has enabled these kind of transitions, and it has forced people and companies and enterprises to change the way they look at IT and the way we consume information technology. Right? So these are just some of the examples of what transformation cloud has brought. Right? There's a term in these days. It's called and that's for the companies which have started recently. So if you were an entrepreneur, or if you were somebody who wanted to start a technology-enabled business, for example, Zomato, right? Ola, Uber, you take any example, right? All these companies have no physical infrastructure for themselves, right? Ola hardly owns any cars. Uber does not have any cars. Airbnb does not own any real estate, right? Still, they are huge businesses. And that's purely because they have leveraged the power of technology to crack a business model, right? To serve two people, right? One, the consumer, and the other producer. Okay. So if you were a property owner in case of Airbnb, and if I was a guest, right, Airbnb would connect both of us. But how is it happening? How is Airbnb even working across multiple countries? How are they servicing global customers, right? That's cloud for you. So there's a term called born on cloud. Okay, you can literally create and manage stuff completely on cloud in a remote data center, and you don't have to care where it is, right? And if you configure it well, if you do the right things, of course, after you understand technology on cloud, right, everything works perfectly for you, right? So Rubrik, for example, it manages data across cloud and on-prem infrastructure, right? To take another simple example, Stripe is a payments processing company. Now, Stripe, if it had to, service its global customers, it's just one click away for it, right? I'm being metaphorical here, but Stripe, if it had to go to a new country tomorrow, it would not start building data centers. It would not start building physical, infrastructure, buying servers, connecting them through cables, and all of that complicated stuff. All it will do is, for example, if it were to use cloud computing, Stripe would ask, "Hey Azure, do you have this infrastructure? This is what I need, and this is the duration for what I need," right? Azure will have that infrastructure. If Stripe had to ask Amazon Web Services, "Hey, we need about 100 servers for the next 20 days because we are doing a big bang sale," right? We are doing a new year's end sale, or we are doing a Christmas sale, right? Like you have sale on Flipkart or Amazon. That is when the usage goes high, and that is when companies like Flipkart or Stripe or even Amazon have to add servers to service their customers, right, and to add capacity. So the idea here is you can actually build an end-to-end product on cloud. You can actually deploy that product completely on cloud without having any on-premises infrastructure, and you can actually do your DevOps and deployment and operations completely on cloud. Okay, so the essence here is, even if I do not own any IT infrastructure, there is something out there called cloud computing, which gives me literally everything, right? And I can do my IT capabilities and focus on my business. A similar analogy is, no matter how big house you buy tomorrow, or no matter how many people are coming to your wedding, the electricity department will not tell you, "Hey, do not consume these many number of units," right? As long as you are paying for whatever you consume in terms of electricity, the power distribution company and the power company themselves will accept your request. So similarly, cloud computing providers, examples here are Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. You have Alibaba Cloud coming in. There's Oracle Cloud, right? So all of these are essentially like power companies, right? These are computing companies. They want to offer you computing capabilities, right? Of course, computing services are different and not just in one form. And as long as you are willing to use them, pay for it, and manage it yourself, there is infinite amount of computing capacity that you can use, right? It could be from any computing provider, or it could be from multiple computing provider, which you call multi-cloud, right? So I hope this just gives you a very high level idea of what cloud computing is, right? And if it wouldn't be for cloud computing and the explosion of bandwidth and hardware revolution that you have, these kind of companies would not have been there. Companies like Ola and Uber wouldn't have been there, right? And they were not there about 10 to 12 years ago. Yeah. So that's the technological revolution that cloud has brought in. And at a very high level, this is the message I wanted to share with you, right? So cloud has changed how people do IT, and it will keep on changing it. Just a few statistical numbers here to draw your attention to. We will not go through each of these numbers, but where I want to draw your attention here is the top left corner, right? If you're looking at the number $162 billion here, that's for cloud computing spend in the next 2 years, right? If you look at 2020 from now, 2 years later, this is the amount of money people will spend in some or the other form related to cloud computing, right? If you look at the top right corner here, the question here is, how many companies are using cloud, right? Now forget single cloud provider, 85% of the companies are using multiple clouds, right? So if I were a company, right, irrespective of what nature of business I am in, it's very likely I'm using either AWS and Azure both, or AWS and Google Cloud both, or Google Cloud and AWS, or any other cloud platform provider, right? It really doesn't matter. The message here is 85% of the companies are using multiple clouds, and that's a fact, right? So clearly cloud computing is an established norm and not an experimental model yet. The security concerns that people had about 5 to 6 years ago are all gone, right? All of your cloud computing providers are government certified. They're certified by auditing agencies. If you talk about Big Four or security auditing agency, in fact, if you read up on cloud computing and if you are aware of the developments, Amazon Web Services or AWS even has a cloud for US government, right? Now you can't talk about security if AWS is servicing US government, right? And that too sensitive departments, right? So if government data and government applications, and out of all the governments, if the US government is willing to bet on cloud computing, I think you can be bet safely as to the security of what cloud brings in, and as to in general how secure cloud computing is, right? So that's a fact. And just a last statistic that I would like to refer to is the market penetration in the second row here. So if you look at AWS market penetration, so obviously this number will keep on changing quarter on quarter because market shares, it's variable, right? In some quarters, AWS is doing well. In some financial quarters, Azure is doing well. So, but the message here is clearly Azure and AWS are market leaders in cloud computing. And if you were to pursue a career in cloud computing and learn a new skill, you might as well learn, one of these or ideally both of these, right, to make sense of what you are learning as a new skill, right? So moving on from here, if you were to ask, hey, where is it happening? Where is cloud computing actually taking off? And if I am in India and if I work for the IT in, Indian IT sector in general, does it make sense for me to be actually concerned about cloud computing? And why not just do something like data analytics or data science, which is in fashion? Well, the fact is cloud computing is taking off in India as well, and taking off for good. Okay, if you observe the trend here from 2015 to 2020, so this is revenue in million US dollars, right? So if you had to draw a line here, it's basically an exponential growth. So any straight line on a graph basically tells you, hey, it's a very solid linear growth, and it's actually growing very well. Okay, so for my question, the market really looks robust, right? And that's only public cloud services market. We are not even talking about private cloud here. Okay, so public cloud services market in India is expected to be a $4 billion market by 2020, right? And it basically means 3 times the growth in the last 4 years, the last 2 years and the next 2 years, right? So clearly the Indian market is growing significantly as well. And as recently as just yesterday, there was an article in the media that for the top 3 companies, right, for the top 3 Indian IT companies, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, and HCL, top 4 in that order. So some of their revenue was being eaten up by cloud computing services, right? So where customers wanted to move from traditional service providers to cloud computing providers, and that is why the balance sheets of HCL and Wipro and Infosys were compromised by a certain extent. So clearly there is an impact on the overall revenue of Indian IT companies because of cloud, and this will only continue to grow. As more and more services move to cloud, more and more applications move to cloud or are born on cloud, in a cloud native fashion, you will see this impact on the industry. And clearly, if the industry revenues are compromised, it also impacts the workforce, like people like you and me. So let's be ready for it. Is it the end of this particular growth? How long will this growth will possibly be, right? So this is a slightly old data, a year back, or a year and a half back, but it's not the year which I am interested here in. It's this particular shade here. If you look at the green color, from 2013 to 2016, even now, it is going down. Okay, so green was 76%, then it became 72, 67, and 63. What is this green color? It is the scope of and the amount of traditional data centers in the country. I'm sorry, globally, not just in India, it's globally. And what it typically means is 2/3 of the companies globally still use traditional data centers. And that number is unfortunately larger in India. So reduction of green means increase in blue, either of these blue colors, right? And both of these blue colors are either public cloud or private cloud, okay? So what this slide here means is the magnitude and the amount of traditional data centers, the number of companies and applications using data centers is going down every year. And the number of companies and applications moving to cloud or being born on cloud is increasing every year. That's the message, right? So as an individual and a professional and as a team at any given company, you need to be ready for it, right? Because today or tomorrow, for sure, it's very likely that your application or your portfolio will move to cloud, right? So like I said, it's only the beginning of this particular growth. And if you were to look at two different sizes of companies, one the enterprise and the other being small and medium businesses, if you look at the distribution here, for large enterprises, there are only 4% companies who have no idea as to how to use cloud, who have no idea what cloud computing means for their business, who have no idea, hey, what will I do with cloud computing? It's only 4%, right? So only 4 out of 100 companies have no idea what cloud computing is, which means 96% are using cloud in some or the other form, okay? And if you had to look at that distribution, 30% plus 28%, right? Now, this is a significant usage, right? This color here means it's a cloud-focused enterprise, right? Cloud dictates what they are doing. Cloud dictates how they design their projects. Cloud dictates what kind of people they hire and so on, right? So almost 30% of the companies are cloud-focused. And the next 30% here are cloud explorers, which means they have moved certain workloads to cloud. There are people who have upskilled to cloud computing, and then they're looking to become the next category of enterprises, which is cloud focused, right? And another 24% here are cloud beginners. They have started experimenting with cloud. They have moved a workload or two to cloud computing and trying to understand the benefits and challenges as well, right? So we'll talk about some of the challenges for existing enterprises if you guys are interested in, but the conclusion that I would like to draw here is 96% of the companies are working with cloud computing, right? So that's the kind of adoption, and that's the kind of trend that the industry has accepted, and clearly it means something different for all of us historically. So if you were to learn any of the cloud platforms, and if you were to work or deploy your application on a given cloud platform, is one cloud platform enough for you, right? I will let this graph and statistic answer this particular question, right? So this is enterprise cloud strategy. This graph basically talks about companies who have minimum 1,000 employees, right? Now, 58% of these companies are talking about hybrid cloud, right? And if you look at the larger number here, 85% of the companies are talking about multi-cloud, right? So in a very layman term, multi-cloud is basically more than one cloud provider. And if 85% of the companies are talking about more than one cloud computing platform, it clearly means the majority of the market wants to explore not just one cloud provider but multiple of them, right? And it depends on multiple considerations. It might be a business requirement, to have backups, to have security. It might be application considerations, right? You might like Azure for some reasons. You might like AWS for whatever reasons. You might like Google Cloud for third set of reasons. But the message here is 85% of the companies are talking about multi-cloud, right? So it's clearly not just one cloud provider, but you need to look at multiple options out there available in the market. Okay. Now what we have largely discussed in the last 10 or 15 odd minutes is what's the market about? What is the business trend here? Is cloud computing growing? The clear answer is yes. Are people accepting cloud computing? Of course, yes, right? 96% of the companies are actually doing it. Is cloud computing here to stay? in the next set of years? The answer is a definite and a big yes. Now, but it's not just about the the market and what businesses are thinking. It's also about technology, right? So if you are a technical person, or even if you're a business person, working with technology or aligned with technology in some sense, apart from market trend and apart from understanding the business growth of cloud, we also need to look at what cloud is doing to other technologies, right? Is cloud computing changing how you work with your databases? Is cloud computing changing how you develop and deploy your applications? Is cloud even changing how you access different APIs? How do you work in your browser? How do you package your applications and so on? Is it even changing that? Again, the answer here is yes, right? So cloud evolution is enabling a lot of fantastic innovation in the infrastructure landscape, right? And clearly with things like DevOps picking up, it's time for the infrastructure segment of our industry to take a ride, right? To innovate, to become cool in terms of what they do. I'm not saying it was not cool of what we were doing, but if you look at aspects that people discuss and things like sprint and agile and lean and check-ins and checkouts, it was all focused towards development, unfortunately, and that's the reason why we are talking about DevOps today, right? Operations and infrastructure are equally important, right? So cloud is helping us evolve other aspects of technology, and it's actually impacting it in a positive sense. So when you learn cloud, you should also learn about things like containers and microservices, right? You should also learn about concepts like data lake. We are hardly talking about databases anymore. People talk about data stores. Now people have started talking about data lake, right? That's the new stuff. People are also talking about edge computing and so on. But the essence here is cloud is not just about business benefits. It is not just about saving money. It is also a lot about technology. And it is also changing the way you do different things as far as technology is concerned, irrespective of the role you are in, whether you're a developer, tester, database guy, infrastructure, operations, it really doesn't matter. Cloud will impact your responsibilities and redesign the way you do your work in some or the other fashion. So why not as well try to understand it if you were to become a cloud professional, right? So that's what cloud is doing positively with different technological aspects. So because of all of this, naturally cloud computing professionals are in demand. This is a global number. So what you're looking at is a number from last year. Of course, it is in US dollars, but conversion to rupees is very easy, right? And it's not just in US or at a global scale. Like I said, it's also valid in India. And if you just do a simple search on maybe your favorite job search portal, could be Naukri.com, could be Indeed, could be LinkedIn, if you are a LinkedIn person, you will see the number of jobs in cloud computing, right? And if you had a chance to look at the recent World Economic Forum report, they identified a certain list of technological areas which are impacting jobs, not just for today, but the next 10 to 15 years. And cloud was right there on top. Okay, so cloud computing professionals are definitely in demand and will be in demand for the foreseeable future, because it is only supposed to grow when you have started doing machine learning and AI and data science and smart cities and IoT all on cloud, right? So that's the kind of demand cloud computing professionals have today and will continue to have at least for the next 10 years. Now this slide is interesting. It's not about the market growth. It's not about what's the top skill. It's basically about a misconception, right? So when people hear about cloud computing, they think it's only about infrastructure, right? When people hear about cloud computing, they think it's only about storage or CPUs or memories or things that are hardware. Well, that's not true. Okay, so cloud computing is as much about your development platforms, as much about software development, as much about operations, and of course infrastructure and so on, right? So the top skills that you see here, this chart is saying which of these cloud skills are the most important for 2017. 2017, right? So containers is the way you deploy your apps, right? Apart from VMs, this is the next level of virtualization, right? It's a different category of virtualization, but if you know containers, if you know Docker, you're right there in the demand list. If you know PaaS, so for example, if you were to, so what is PaaS basically? It's an environment that you set up for your application development, right? So Elastic Beanstalk is your PaaS. Okay, so Microsoft Azure started out as a PaaS way back when Microsoft launched it as a cloud platform. DevOps, we won't go into the depth of what DevOps actually means, but clearly DevOps is not just a hardware concept, right? It encompasses multiple aspects of not just the dev and the ops, but also how you manage a project, etc., etc. So these are the 3 top skills when we look at cloud professionals, and they are not hardware, right? So that's the myth we wanted to break. When people thought about cloud computing. So as an architect or an architect in training, if that is your interest area, right? You might not be an architect today, but you might have aspirations of becoming an architect. So if you fall into that category, and no matter what role you come from as of now, understanding various aspects of cloud, including development, operations, platforms, cloud native approaches like containers are extremely crucial, right? Unless you understand that, there is no way you're going to become a hands-on architect. And if you were to become just a paper certified architect, it wouldn't help much, right? So again, certifications and specific line of training is very important, but having a comprehensive view and a hands-on view of these skills is the top priority for companies, right? And that's what we should all aim for. So just a recent article where it's not about just this person, but it's a larger thought that is there in the industry that cloud computing will virtually replace traditional data centers within 3 years, right? And this was just back a couple of months. So that will happen, whether you and I like it or not, because of clear, not just the business benefits, but also technology benefits, right? So this will happen. So what are the top skills on the cloud? If you were to become a cloud professional, what are the things you should know and you should aspire to learn, right? So it's databases and big data on the cloud. It's enterprise cloud migration, more in India, because we have a lot of legacy code, we have a lot of legacy application, and primarily because the Indian IT sector has historically been a service-oriented industry rather than a product-based industry. We service a lot of projects, right? Of course, from North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Because we service a lot of projects from other locations, these services and these projects will need to move to cloud when the customers want it. And when the customers want it, that is the time you should be ready as a company, right? Because if the customer wants to move their application today, and if tomorrow is when I'm supposed to become a cloud professional, it hardly helps. It doesn't help me, it doesn't help my company, and you lose the race basically. So enterprise cloud migration is on top of the list. So containers, definitely, not just Docker. Today we have started talking about other container environments as well. So of course Docker is the market leader as of now, but it's not about Docker, but it's about the container as a concept, which started about 35 years back. It's not even a new concept, but Docker actually brought it to fame because people started using it. So containers again is the top of the list. And of course you have DevOps, a hot buzzword in the market, and cloud governance and security, right? Especially for people who are at the decision-making levels. So these are the top skills which you have and aspire for if you wanted to become a cloud professional. Now let me take a pause here, and before I dive into the specifics of hey, why are we excited about this cloud opportunity, and why and what's our philosophy and design for creating this cutting edge and best in class cloud computing program. Let me take questions if you have any based on what we have discussed, and then we can dive into the program specifics at Great Lakes. Sure, Chandrasekhar. Yeah, please go ahead. Do you want to ask your question, Chandrasekhar? I assume you're typing. Okay. Wait, let me. Okay. I'm still waiting for your question. I am not sure if you can speak to ask a question. Do you mind just typing it in? Okay, so I think we have a question here. Do we need to learn any coding or development stuff? I assume it is stuff to become cloud computing architect. So my answer would be yes, right? I am not sure if the person asking this question is still online, but for if you want to become an architect, I think you should aspire to become a hands-on architect. Because let's understand why. As an architect, you would be handling a team of diverse talents, right? Different people. You will be talking to folks who do development. You will be talking to folks who do DevOps, right? Not just development, DevOps. You would be talking to people who are specialized on different platforms, right? And as an architect, if you really don't understand what these guys are doing, and if you don't understand what a certain code means, it's difficult for you to judge, right? It will be difficult for you to make an informed decision and to take a judgment as to what what you should do as an architect and where are the changes or design considerations that you would like to bring in as an architect. So I think the idea is not to become a hardcore developer, but you should know enough development so that you can at least talk to the developer and understand what that person is saying. Because otherwise, you just have different vocabulary as an architect, and what the developer or DevOps guy is saying really doesn't make sense to you. And in that case, you will make a faltered decision, right? Because you won't have enough context. So I think it's important. Yeah. Okay, so Chandrasekhar, is this your question? Okay, right. That's okay. You can learn it during the program itself. Of course, so what we do is we do a Linux refresher session whenever we onboard a new batch. But Unix is something you can really pick up very quickly. It's no rocket science, right? So what we do with Windows, it's just GUI based. It's just click, click, click. But if you use Unix, there are a basic set of commands that you're supposed to use, and once you practice it for a certain set of weeks, you get a hands-on comfort. So you can easily pick it up. It's not rocket science. Okay. Chandrasekhar, I'm sorry, but I really don't know how to, I don't use this tool regularly, so maybe you can just type in your question. If it takes time, it's fine. We have time, so that's okay. You can just type in on a notepad and then copy paste here. I'll be happy to answer. Okay, so any example of what kind of coding language we need to learn, right? You can pick up any language, but it makes sense to pick up something which is in demand. So I would recommend, Python very highly for you to pick up if you wanted to learn something new. So Python is a cross-domain language. You can use it for data science, for AI and machine learning, and even for developing web applications or full stack development, or even for a couple of other applications for scientific computing, for example. So Python is a solid language to pick up. Sharad, Java is not compulsory. If you know Java, it's great. Otherwise, you can basically use whatever language you are comfortable with, unless that is basic and Algol and Fortran, which is long gone, right? So, yeah. Okay, so I think I have answered all the questions that are here. I do not see any new questions. So what I'll do is I'll continue with the presentation, and I'll give you guys time to maybe come up with any questions you have later. All right. What is the requirement to learn cloud? Savita, like I mentioned, right? So there are a couple of technology trends which are changing the way companies are using IT. And if you don't learn cloud today, you might have to learn it tomorrow, because that's what the industry will need. And if you talk about the compulsion of learning cloud, it's not us because we have a program on cloud, because rather the other way is true, because the industry needs people who are skilled in cloud computing. That is the reason we have a program on cloud computing, right? Because we operate in all the hot tech areas, and if you look at the list of programs that we offer, it is basically responding to the industry and market demand, right, for skilled professionals. Vigneswaran, right? Question is, which is better, Hadoop big data or cloud computing? Well, Vignesh, I don't think the question is right, to be honest with you, because Hadoop big data is a totally different thing, and cloud computing is a completely different thing. So I don't think there can be a comparison. But what is true is you can do Hadoop big data, both data engineering as well as analytics on cloud computing, right? So cloud computing, because it offers Hadoop as a managed service, right? Your big data tasks become a lot easier. So it's not the right comparison, but cloud computing enables you to do Hadoop big data and makes it much more easier for you to do things like cluster creation, data analysis, data ingestion, and so on. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. How the program is going to benefit after 6 months. Okay, so I don't know why we have a number there after 6 months, but if you learn something as comprehensive as the set of skills that we have discussed, it will definitely help you in either getting an internal transition, if that is your agenda, or become better at doing your stuff and with a lot more enhancement, right, on cloud. So if you are a developer, you can become a cloud native developer. If you're an operations guy, you can become a cloud engineer or a cloud administrator. If you're an architect, you can become a cloud native architect, somebody who knows cloud computing in and out and can contribute back to the industry. All right, let's move on to what we have, right, in terms of our program here. And why does it make sense for for all the interested people who want to become cloud professionals to pursue this program? Okay, so the postgraduate program in cloud computing here it's a 6-month program. It's an executive program for working professionals, right? So it's a program where if you enroll, your classmates are all working professionals, and it gives you a solid opportunity to network with other folks from the industry as well. Now, the program is designed for professionals who are on the path of becoming architects, right? You might not be an architect today, but if that is your aspiration, this program is meant for you, right? Because this program is meant for architects in the making, it has a comprehensive nature. You will see multiple courses and then multiple technical streams that are being discussed in the classroom. And because your classmates are all working professionals, the peer-to-peer learning is a very unique feature of postgraduate program in cloud computing, right? If you talk about how would you pursue this program along with your work, we have taken that into account as well. It's a convenient online format, and it's combined with lots and lots of live interactions and tons of hands-on work, right? In fact, if you take up the postgraduate program in cloud computing, the only assignments that we have are labs and projects, right? So on what basis do you get evaluated? It is based on what you do, either on AWS, I'm sorry, either on Docker, either with DevOps and big data, or either any other technological stream that we are discussing. But the only assessment we have is labs and projects. You're taught by industry leaders. People who you learn from are themselves well-known architects. They've done multiple projects to the tune of millions of dollars across continents, and these are hands-on experts, right? It's not just about talking cloud, it's also about doing cloud computing and all the other stuff which comes along with cloud computing. And the icing on the cake here is you get international certification from Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago, right? So it's a dual certification program. Apart from getting certified by one of the top management institutions in the country, Great Lakes Institute of Management, you also get IIT Chicago certificate, right? So it's also an internationally recognized program. Okay. Okay, so I think there are a couple of questions here. Let me check if we have questions. Okay, so any basic eligibility criteria to join this program? So Chandrasekhar, I think it's all there on the website, but to quickly let you know, we expect people to understand code at a basic and intermediate level. It's not meant for you to be a hardcore developer, but because you need to understand things like cloud native development and DevOps, right? Some fundamental appreciation of coding is necessary. You would also require to understand networking concepts, right? You don't have to be a networks guy, but you at least need to understand what is a CIDR block, right? What is an IP? What is a virtual private cloud? What is networking, etc., right? So that's the basic criteria. Apart from that, your experience in the IT industry helps a lot, right? So because people come from different backgrounds, that's what helps a lot. But as far as basics are concerned and the eligibility criteria is concerned, some understanding of programming, comfort with Linux environment. If not, you can always practice it in the initial phases of the program. And understanding network concepts is absolutely essential. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Neil has a question. Currently, I work on voice and video technology network. How can I apply for this, my future career? Okay, so Sunil, that's a very abstract term. If you mean VoIP, that means something else. If you mean content distribution network, it means something else, right? But from what I understand is you work on the infrastructure side of things, right? If my assumption is correct. Now, if you work on the infrastructure side of things, it's very easy for you to correlate what you were doing earlier, right? And what you would do with cloud computing. So for you, it is a natural transition, right? So I could be somebody like you and work for Akamai, right? So Akamai powers, most of the global distribution networks. And whether you're using, Akamai for Facebook or Google or any other, let's say YouTube, I can understand what Akamai is doing and what I am doing at Akamai as a media streaming or a content distribution company or a purely networking company. It doesn't matter. Okay? So I think for you, it's a natural transition from a traditional voice and video tech person to, let's say, a cloud architect or a cloud engineer for that matter, depending on your number of years of experience and most importantly, the skills that you have. Yeah. So I hope that helps you. Okay. So coming back to the program here, like I said, it's a 6-month completely online program. It's meant for people who want to become architects. You have tons of hands-on work and lots of live interactions. You will be taught by industry leaders and you get dual certification, right? So this is what you will learn. Okay, so in terms of learning, there are certain buckets of concepts that you would learn. So we've categorized them into cloud foundations. I'm sorry about the resolution here, and the display that you see is basically, so I use a Linux box and I basically use Ubuntu, and the office software on Ubuntu isn't really great as compared to Windows, honestly. So when you render something into PDF, this is how it might become. But this basically means AWS, Azure, right? And I can't read the third one, but doesn't matter. So what you learn is these foundational concepts as to what IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS is. What do you even mean by public, private, and hybrid cloud, virtualization, containers, etc. So this is about the basics of, and absolute fundamentals of what cloud is and what virtualization was. So once you're done with that, you come to learn the fundamentals of cloud, right? So things like compute, storage, network, database services, identity, access management, etc. Right? You do that both on Azure and AWS. Most importantly, you learn how to build cloud solutions, right? So one trend we have identified with people is if they're just purely paper certified, they will know how things are supposed to work. But in real life, all of us will agree it's not how things work, right? Things fail most often than not. And because you need to become an architect and you need to build solutions, our focus is on building end-to-end solutions and not just using a particular service either by AWS or Azure, right? For us, it's about the use case that you're trying to solve. And that's what you will learn throughout the program. And believe me, I can't overemphasize this enough. You will have a lot of hands-on experience through labs and projects. The kind of labs that you have in some online programs, those are very superficial. I do not want, I'm not trying to demean any of the courses out there, but I have pursued them myself, right? And having a comparative perspective of what I have done there and what you would do in a PGPCC program, it's completely different. So you will get lots of hands-on exposure, when you're doing this program. So just a limited snapshot of who our faculties are. This is obviously not the complete list of faculties. This is just a sample size. But if you look at their qualifications, their experience, and where they're positioned in the industry, so all of their industry leaders, right? So you have former chief architects for companies like Dell to present cloud solutions architect at Microsoft, and you have people also from IEEE and who are cloud thought leaders who've been at IBM and are CTOs and CEOs, right? So you will learn from the best of the faculties, and it's not just about you learning from them, but we learn from you as well, right? So your questions, your use cases actually contribute to the classroom, and together, all of you bring over, hundreds of years of experience into the classroom. And when you learn from the best of the faculties, it's an altogether different learning outcome, and that's our agenda with all our programs. Right, so what would you do throughout the program, throughout the 6 months that you enroll into PGPCC? If I were to answer that in one word, it would be build, build, and build, right? So you will basically end up building multiple labs and projects throughout the 6 months. It's a very rigorous program, and it's a very intensive program, right? So you will learn a lot in terms of hands-on exposure, right? A common question that we keep on getting, and in fact, when I do these sessions, I get this common question here: do you guarantee placements? Do you have any placement assistance? Well, if you ask me placement assistance, the answer is yes, right? But if you ask if there is a guarantee for placement, it really doesn't make sense for guaranteeing placements for mid-career professionals, right? Because mid-career professionals are not, hired through campus placements. That's not the model that industry follows. And more often than not, mid-career professionals are, they get hired either through applying to relevant opportunities, one, or through their own network, wherein they know a certain person, that they are doing a certain project, and if you can highlight your capability, they would hire you. Okay, so we've had instances where, a set of people form a team and are doing a capstone project, and they're actually hired by their own capstone team leader, right? And we have had multiple of such success stories. So yes, we do definitely assist you. We do a career guidance workshop. That's there for every batch. We try to help and with your CVs, we try to read through your LinkedIn profile, suggest improvements, and we also share opportunities, right? So we have a network of companies. Whenever we have an opportunity coming from them, we share it in your learning management system and also in your inbox. So if there is a certain opportunity that's relevant for you guys, it will definitely come to you. But in terms of guarantee, nobody can guarantee a career transition, and then it really doesn't make sense for a mid-career professional, right? So we provide you career opportunities in terms of informing you about relevant openings. We encourage you to network with your classmates and the faculty who are industry professionals themselves, and we also encourage you to connect with the industry during our industry sessions as well. So we definitely enable career success, but so our focus is on learning, right? And when we say that, our focus is on enabling you to become skilled so that you can affect a transition for yourself rather than depending on somebody else, right? So that's our focus. So we focus on the learning aspect, and we definitely help you in all of these formats. But of course, there's no guarantee for a transition because it's not a campus placement process. So guys, that's pretty much from my side, and let me take any questions that we have. In fact, we were just about on the right time, and let me see if I have more questions here. So I think I see the same set of questions. Okay, so Savita says, currently I'm working on testing and I have 12 years of experience. It's right time to switch my career to cloud. Well, I would say yes, Savita. And not just for cloud, I think for testing in general, because of the amount of automation that we are seeing, not just with cloud, with in general, the development of infrastructure as a code and things like Terraform and CloudFormation, I think is the right time. And if you are interested in what cloud computing is all about, I think you can also transition to cloud. So it's the right time. Chandrasekhar, so after this program, shall we be eligible using labs traditionally? So if I read your question correctly, what it means is you want to use the labs even after you graduate. Is that what it means? Chandrasekhar? Okay, so let me assume that. So if your question is about using the lab environment provided by us even after the program, the answer would be no. We provide the lab environment access while you are in the program, but after that you will not be able to access it. But you can always keep on experimenting with with a personal account on AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, and all of them offer a certain amount of free usage, no matter who you are, right? Okay, so I do not see any more questions here. So I hope all of you learned something from this particular session, and I hope this session was helpful in making you understand and making you aware about cloud computing in general, and the program that we have at Great Lakes, which is PG program in cloud computing. So if you are excited and interested about the opportunity that cloud computing brings, and if you are excited about the learning model that we offer here, the PG program in cloud computing is something that you should seriously consider, and I hope it helps you in your quest for a better role and a career transition. Thank you for attending today, and wish you a good day. And if you have any more questions, you can reach out to our admissions office. The number is right there on the screen, or you can write your questions to this email address mentioned on the screen as well. All the best. Thank you for attending, and have a good day.